and then the Mana Vault, because I'm not going to go through the other ones.
Yeah, well, we know why they're good. You can just read them.
Yeah. So, yeah, just the more busted versions of, like, you know, I'm not doing, like, Grim and all that other shit. People don't play Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond at our table. But I have seen people play Mana Vault and Mana Crypt just because they've been printed in a recent amount of years. A reasonable amount of years, also.
And they were easy enough to pull.
Price of Mox Diamond?
I don't want to even think about it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So... Okay. So that's that, I think.
I can say this is stuff that we see commonly, because, like, we'll see Nykthos, but we won't see Gemstone Caverns as often at tables, because we're not, like Gemstones like that, hey, we need it right away, or, like, what was that, the Tarnished Citadel, whatever was it called? Was that what it was called?
Oh, yeah, Tarnished Citadel? Yeah. What, the one that I play?
Yeah, but I guess not really ramp, it just covers colors.
Gemstone Cavern?
Because Gemstone Cavern is another one, like, I don't think I've actually sat down at a table and played against someone who's actually had it in their deck.
Other than CDH.
Yeah.
That's the only time I see it. So... Okay, so this is that. I'm trying to think of how we should do this. We should just make another category and name it, like, interaction or draw. And just put it all in there.
So, yeah, let's talk, well...
Do we want to go into draw, or you think we're good in ramp? Is there anything you want to cover in ramp? So, like we said, depending on the CMC of your deck is how balls in you want to go with ramp. So we have played up to 15 sources of ramp for decks that are playing. A good measure is if you're 6 and under, 10 to 11 to 12 is probably good amount of ramp. If you're like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, you know, and above, you probably want to lean more closer to like 37 lands and then like, you know, 15 sources of ramp, 16, you know, things like that.
In our time of doing this, one of the things that really like kind of came to mind when like I'm looking at people's decks now, I noticed that like let's say when we build a deck, we have a strategy. We have its main core concept and some of the pieces that like really help it some ways to recur in case it gets messed with our interaction, our protection spells. And then I start to look at sometimes like other like deck builds, not even like friends, just people's online, and I'm like they have so much redundancy in like what they need to do that it feels almost unnecessary. Because I'm now looking at decks where I'm like, okay, well, say this is for example, this is a tribal dragon deck because that's just what's on my mind. And I'm like, okay, well, they just put every good dragon that they could in here where I could maybe cut these ones here that aren't as great and just put like the creature draw spells or the protection package or some more interaction stuff, because what you have,
especially if you're 5 colors, the fucking options.
Because you have
and
already
most people are playing 5-color dragon decks.
So when you have already like a bunch of really decently good stuff, like I don't think you need to worry about running some other things. Where let's say if you're playing like I have my janky mono blue planeswalker deck. There are some blue walkers that I didn't put in because I'm reading like, yeah, you know what, they don't go value, and I'm still just trying to find like my combo. So all the walkers that I have in the deck currently have a plus value to that helps me dig. So every planeswalker becomes reoccurring value. So the longer they stay out, that like I end up going through like 9, 10 cards a turn. Oh, Chevy, be quiet. Can you hear him? He's barking.
The thing is, another thing I want to talk about is, do we consider things like this?
Well, let's go to them. Let's talk. We'll talk about them as the mana doublers. So yeah, maybe it's our next category. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about the mana doublers.
So add category.
Add category.
Technically doesn't double mana, but it kind of does in a sense.
I spelled that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so mana doublers, and then put it in there.
Okay. So Zendikar Resurgent is one more bunch of Mana Reflections I become a big fan of recently, if I'm not a creature-based deck.
Starting to get up there a little bit again. So the best
Mirari's
one
Wake.
is Nyx Bloom Agent.
Yes, 100%. Sure. Nyx Bloom Agent is absolute ridiculous. Mirari's Wake if you're in those colors.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull some of these out of here.
Oh, you pull them into enchantment.
Oh, yeah. So, I think that was all the ones we said.
One that people kind of sleep on a lot of times is Cage Sun. We haven't really messed with the deck with it because I don't think we've built an outside of a green deck that needs like a ton of ramp with it.
Same thing with this one, extra planar lens.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know how expensive it is now if it got reprinted.
Oh.
Nope, still fucking ridiculously expensive. So this is basically just extra planar lens is basically just a ridiculously expensive Cage Sun.
Yeah. Well, slightly different because you do have to go down a land for it to be good, and it checks for names, and so it can affect other players. That's the one thing Cage Sun does not.
Another thing is like Crypt Gas. I like considering things like that, you know. Crypt Gas in the mono black decks or
right. There's also there's the other black vampire chick that does Nirvana Revenant.
And then there's things like Doubling Cube, which is kind of like
well, that doubles your floated mana, but you do have to pay for it. So I mean, it's up to you how you want to how you feel about it. I guess it can technically double your mana.
I'm thinking of what else would be a good.
No, I actually have a whole bunch of them. So so there are ones that affect other players, which I'm not as big on. Vorinclex, if you want to be a jerk.
Oh yeah. Well, we're putting them all regardless of like, you know, what the.
There's the Nissa that does it for your forests. I don't know if
it's Vital Force.
No,
it's not.
Who Shakes the World?
Yeah, Nissa.
But it has to be a forest though. It's one trade off.
That's fine.
Oh, Gauntlet of Power is the bad Cage Sun because it does the same exact thing except it affects everybody.
So things that you learn about me and Derek is we really don't like to give other people value.
Nope.
Like we try to stay away from it as much as possible unless the commander plays well with it, like the Devil we made. But we're not for giving other players value, which is why we don't like cards that I see like Growing Right. What is it called? Right of the thing that lets everybody play an additional land to draw a card. That's 3 mana.
Oh, Rights of Flourishing.
To me, those are trapped. Rights of Flourishing. To me, cards like that and the 2 mana, like everybody draws extra cards, those are traps. You're 90% of the time making a player who isn't going to be drawing a lot of the cards at the table now have a full grip of cards plus trying to do some bullshit strategy or trying to play his entire hand out like a creature player and like giving a dinosaur player a full grip, you know. Like I don't like stuff like that, you know. But yeah, so anything else on the mana doublers?
There's a bunch of terrible ones like Vernal Bloom is the one I tried out in mono green for a little bit because it doubles green.
Verdant Bloom?
No, Vernal Bloom. VERNAL.
Vernal Bloom.
It's the same thing. It affects everybody though, but it does have a keyword forest, not basic forest. And if you want to be really bad, you can play Heartbreed as Spring, so everybody gets double mana. That literally just says whenever a player taps land for mana, double.
And notice a lot of these are low costed, and a lot of these are basically traps. Like people like to play. I see people play these in like Field of the Dead, and also another thing I want to talk about for the ramp lands because I want to bring up how much I don't like this card is Temple of the False Gods.
You mean Temple of the Turn 5?
Yeah, like I will give one deck that is allowed to play this. One deck.
Landfall decks?
No.
Or colorless?
No, not even Landfall. Sure, Landfall maybe. No, not even colorless. It's the Kraken thing that is a land that's in Simic.
Oh right, the Slumbering
That's the only one. That's the only one because the commander's a land.
Erixmithes, I think it's called.
You always at least have a land. So, and it's Simic. I'm not a fan of this card. Lands decks could play this, but then there's still going to be those awkward hands where you draw it. Like, you're probably going to mulligan it if you see it in your opening hand and you don't have enough lands. But, like, which in a lands deck, you know, that's just shot shit. But, like, there might be those awkward hands that you keep on 2 with a ramp, and then now this temple is just not tapping for mana. I hate not being able to curve my mana and having to play around a card when a card should just be useful immediately. And I'm not saying everybody should go out and buy Ancient Tomb. Like, I don't even think decks need Ancient Tomb. Like, we don't play Ancient Tomb in any of our decks, and they work perfectly fine. Like, well, that we've made on the channel. I play them in some of my decks.
And then
like Violet.
But then a lot of time, like, we've been building a lot of like multicolor decks, so sometimes the 2 colorless isn't really as isn't as good as just playing a reducer. If I play a reducer, it's gonna hit those costs, and I'd rather have that than have to worry about taking damage all the time. Oh, Tom, another thing. So another thing, kind of like with how Growing Rights is, I remember what the card was thinking of, the Great Henge. The Great Henge is ridiculous draw and gets a bit of ramp, but it does need a lot of setup to get there, which I guess isn't the hardest thing to do, but it isn't still like I don't get to play it turn 1, turn 2, and get the value out of it right away. You have to commit to the board to get there.
So that definitely goes in artifacts. Yeah, that's a good one. It's still worth it though.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely a slower. Like I consider that a half ramp.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about with the medallions. Like
exactly.
It's like a half ramp. It's gonna function as a ramp, and man, when it gets there, like 2 green and gaining 2 life plus drawing is fucking ridiculous. So okay, so that's it for most of the mana doublers. Oh, another card I actually want to talk about is the World Tree. So this is good. This is good ramp fixing also.
Yeah, it's more fixing than anything.
This is really for the 4 5 color decks. So we started playing this just because we learned that having this land in the deck, especially because we actually like to play Golos in a lot of our 5 color decks, even if he's not the commander, just because Golos is such a good card. And same thing with Kenrith and Svella. Like, they just kind of get in a lot of our 5 color decks because they just play to the 5 color deck strategy really well. Like, Kenrith has a million payoffs that he gets to do when you have all the mana. Golos is the same way. He gets the perfect land you need, which is usually the World Tree, and now your color's fixed and you don't have to worry about mana for the rest of the game, which is very important in a 5 color deck, because usually 5 color deck strategies are so strong that, like, you want to have the perfect mana base. Because you're playing 5 color, you get to play all the best cards, and you want to make sure that you can play them and you don't have to hold off on anything, which is why we love this card. You don't have to play gods to play this card. Trust me, just play this card in your 5 color decks. I've been pushing it on people. I made Drew put it in his group hug deck. This land is just great for any 5 color strategies, 100%. And it's so cheap. Okay, so is that what we got for mana doublers?
Yeah, I think those are like the ones that you probably would see the most. Some of them I wouldn't run at all. Like Heartbeat, I run Heartbeat of Spring in a deck build that plans the combo off the turn it's going off, so it runs all the bad mana doublers because it's gonna get the value off of it and win on its turn. So you're not getting a chance to benefit off of it. But other than that, like, I really don't run a lot of the ones that give global, because like I said, I don't like giving your opponent stuff.
These are all the best ones for sure. I can't think of another one that we're missing at all.
No.
I think we pretty much hit them all.
I don't think...
obviously, these are more niche, but like, you know, some of them are like, you know, this is just green, but you know. Okay. So, is that it for ramp? Do we want to talk about anything else?
Don't think so.
Okay, so now I think we should get into interaction. Okay, so let's just start with one and I'll make a category for it. Because I think ramp is going to be the broadest one anyway, so that's why it needs all the categories. But we're going to start with path and then just rename it.
So this is just like, I guess our go-to interaction depending on whatever color we're running.
So I'm also going to consider interaction. We're going to separate protection and interaction.
Yeah.
Even though technically you call it all
interaction. Well,
kind of like interaction.
Or would you want to go removal protection and just because it all?
Yeah. I'm gonna do removal instead. Yeah, that's better. So let's get rid of that and do removal, and then protection is separate. So removal. Okay. So
because we can even count counter spells as technically removal because it's removing the threat from happening.
Yes. So Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshare. So also one thing that I want to talk about first before we get into talking about interaction is usually with interaction, one thing that people I don't want to say get wrong, but for casual players, this is a casual player thing, and I know that like people are gonna say like you play the lowest cost that you possibly can. I would much rather pay more mana for something and have it do more. Like if we're talking about like one of the cards that we play a lot, which is Return to Nature. Like this card, right? So this is one more mana. Then hold on, I'm gonna add this, and then people will like be like, well, this card is just so much better because it's one less mana. So like something like Nature's Claim, right? Which is just like destroy target artifact and enchantment, they gain 4 life, right? Okay, great. Not every game is for CDH. I would much rather have the additional option of getting to exile a card from the graveyard because that actually is pretty relevant. Like, there's a lot of times that I can think of that people are recurring cards, and that this particular effect is worth spending 1 more mana to have a modal option than to just go with what is the lowest costed best removal that my deck can possibly have. So
yeah, I agree, because that's the same thing what I talk about is even if it costs 1 more mana, it becomes a more narrow card as its field of what it hits becomes smaller. So then the Return to Nature definitely becomes I love Archmage's Charm.
Cards like that is Archmage's Charm. Getting into some of the just we'll talk about each interaction, but just going off the modal thing, like Cryptic Command.
Yeah, I've played Cryptic Command a lot less in my decks just because sometimes 4 mana does get a little unfortunate. But I really do like stuff like Rewind or Unwind, just because you get to untap afterward.
Yes. What's the Mystic? The 5 mana.
It's a Mystic Confluence. Yeah.
So this is more on the modal stuff, getting to bounce, counter, or draw, and then also Sublime Epiphany, and then Derek saying Unwind, and Sublime Epiphany.
I like those.
The most modal card of all time.
Yeah. So the reason why I like cards like I said, the Unwind and Rewind, is even if they don't have other effects to them besides just countering, the untap seems really cool because it basically pays for itself and it kind of comes free. Sure, it's basically you're just discarding a card to stop something from happening.
Well, Rewind's an actual hard counter, which is pretty good.
Yeah, but then if you have any type of mana doubler out, or like some mana rocks or some land that taps for more than 1 mana, like a Nykthos or something, you get to untap it, and now you can generate more value out of it. So like if I had to choose between running Cryptic Command or Rewind in a deck, I think I would actually take Rewind in a decent amount of instances. Just because you also have to get around a table, so it's easier.
Depends on the colors also, because if you're just a blue deck, you're probably just gonna play them both.
Yeah.
But like if you're like Simic, you'll probably choose the Rewind over something and play other things. But like,
because having to go around the whole table and have to potentially deal with multiple threats, going 4 mana to stop one person's spell and drawing a card doesn't feel as good as just me going Arcane Denial, for an example.
So funny thing about counter spells though also is that they're also like pseudo protection too, because like you'll consider them removal also because they stop something from happening, but they can also stop your opponent's removal too. So they're kind of just like pseudo protection.
You're
also,
removing the spell from the stack.
Exactly. So like they're kind of just like in a gateway between the two of them. So talking about Path and Swords, I like those two a lot. I play those in most white decks that I can. And also something that I want to bring up is how many do you think you should play in a deck? So if you're heavy in on a creature strategy, you do not want to play too much removal. Usually like 5 to 6 is good. And a lot of the time we end up playing more protection than actual removal. And even if the creature, like even if the deck isn't doing the removal, it's usually fine because a lot of the time, player removal is good enough, especially if you have so much card advantage. You're going to usually see the 1 or 2 removal pieces that you're going to need. Like, especially if you're the Beast Whisperer deck, you're going to draw through 1 million cards. You're going to see the 1 or 2 pieces that you need to interact with the threat. And there's a bunch of other people at the table, like, it's going to get dealt with. So, I usually try to lean more towards, like, the 5 or, like, 4 to 5 interaction spells for those kind of decks. And then playing, like, 5 to 6 protection, you know, even more if like you're just in on it. So like Shram only plays 3. right now, but I'm also playing artifacts that deal with things. Technically, Karmic Justice is kind of like a halfway interaction spell, but like not like a really good one, because I'm right now I'm just playing the Swords to the Path and the Generous Gift, and then I'm playing like 5 pieces of protection. No joke.
Well, speaking
Just
of which,
because
Generous Protection and Beast Within, let's get them in the list.
Oh yeah, Generous Gift, yeah. So like we're not done adding things, obviously. I'm just
But considering you just mentioned it, let's get that in Beast Within. The fact that because they get to target any permanent, and sometimes you don't want to deal just with creatures, like the very few times where like we run interaction spells that can deal with lands if we so need to.
So then also Vindicate, because that's a thing.
Yeah. Colors we don't play too much because sometimes I feel like that those colors struggle sometimes.
Yeah, so Anguished Unmaking. Well, it depends on what it ends up being. Anguished.
Another one that it's kind of expensive and its mana sucks, but Bedevil, if you're in those colors, is
I like Bedevil. Yeah.
One of probably like their premier removal because it hits everything.
Look at how expensive Anguished Unmaking is now.
Oh yeah, jeez.
Bedevil. Yes, I like Bedevil.
Now, would you consider Chaos Warp?
Yes, 100%. Yes. People play that a lot.
I think it's if you're mono red, you kind of have to.
Yeah, or like red green and like your interaction's not amazing, or just like Boros,
Feed the Swarm.
Yeah,
I think or how about that new black kill spell that we're getting? I don't think it's out yet. Lose 2 life to kill anything.
Yes. Well, not a permanent, but a creature.
Well, yeah, but like a creature, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll consider that like is it called Infuriate?
The new one?
Yeah. No, not Infuriate. Hold on, I have it written down. Wait. Infernal Grass.
That.
Let's see if it's probably here already. It is. Okay. So we're just going to consider this in the category of all the just like go for the throat type cards, So like this will just be like, this is the Malicious Afflictions, go for the throats, like all the 2 mana Doom Blades. This is the best one. And then also we talk about things like that, like with if you're like a monocolor deck, like something like Hero's Downfall, we play a lot. Murderous Rider, we like to play because it's also a creature at the end of the day.
Now, would you consider bounce removal?
Yes. So like Cyclonic Rift, Into the Royal.
Rift is the big one.
Unless we want to make something for like board wipes on its own.
Oh, maybe because I think the trade-off with removal as compared to bounce is that it doesn't deal with the problem always. It just temporarily deals with it.
I think we should make a yes. I totally agree with you. By the way.
So like Remand, that's why we don't see Remand, because like we can't benefit off of it that much because it's so easy at times to replay stuff.
It's like this, not with the H, right?
Yeah.
Or is it with the H? No, it's just like this, right?
Yeah. Because there's been times where like people have like Cyclonic Rifted me as a green player, and I've hit so many ramp spells. I'm like, okay, it's all back on the board. I'm glad you dealt with it for a turn. Now you got to deal with it again.
So before we get too much, and I totally agree with you, which is where like if you're the blue deck countering and you get things out of play and then you start countering again. Which, by the way, counterspell. I want to get into some of our favorite counterspells. So just counterspell. Arcane Denial.
Yep.
Is one that we play a lot. And me and Derek tend to play a lot of counterspells just because they are indeed the most versatile cards in Magic. Like I know, they have like a stigma about playing blue, I want to like, Naya Yeehaw, but like we mostly use them for protection. Like we're not like dick countering a lot of things, or like, we're basically using them as like pseudo protection to make sure that our strategy is continuing. Like when I put them in Gissengerolf, it basically made the deck like go from an 8 to a 9, just because I got to counter that one important thing. I don't want to consider Swan Song just because I think that that's one of the like too strong ones actually. Wait.
The thing is, Swan Song. Yeah, Swan Song hits all the things that blue decks worry about. It's like, okay, it's like, Reality Shift or like Pongify effects. How do you feel about those? Because
yes, for sure, for those blue players. So negate, and then I want to get the Dovin's.
Oh, Dovin's Veto is again, if you get to play those colors, like having that can't be countered counterspell
is ridiculous.
It feels real good when you have it.
There's also the red blue one. I forget
Oh,
what it's called. Counterflux?
yeah, I think Counterflux. Yeah,
That also
because
counters like the whole stack.
you could overload it.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Okay, so and then you said the Pongify. So this is for just the mono blue. We're gonna go through most of the colors and what like the monocolored decks end up playing. So Reality Shift is a good one. Pongify, I'm not gonna put Rapid in Pongify. I'll just put Pongify. And then also the new Resculpt that we've been playing in most of our decks that we've liked.
Oh yeah, I really like that too.
Because it also hits artifacts. Okay, so okay. So oh, and if we want like the king of bounce, it's Capsize for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the really dumb one.
One I also kind of like. I mean, it's not completely dealing with the problem, but Narset's Reversal. Because of how it's worded, it's not really a counter spell. It puts it back in their hand, but it lets you turn off a can't be countered spell in a way, and I think that's really good.
Yes. I'm trying to just think of each deck that what they play. Vandal Blast is a good one. I'm trying to think of like the mass board wipe ones.
Are we going for board wipe stuff?
Well, like it's kind of in between.
Well,
so like I'll put it in the board wipe thing, but it's kind of like in between.
Well, maybe it just like it does wipe all artifacts that aren't yours, which that is a really good one.
I do consider that a board wipe also, so we'll just put it in with that one also. Actually, it's more usually like a single targeted removal. It's kind of like in between both. We'll just put it over there for the shit of it. But so some more other color removal. I'm just trying to think for monocolor. Oh, Oubliette I've been liking because this actually like just shuts off commanders and there's nothing you can actually do about it. Because the way that it's worded, and the one thing that you can't stop your commander, like make your commander go into the command zone from, is phasing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the cards that actually just shuts down your commander.
Oh, another thing, again, for like the other multicolor things, I'm just trying to think of more multicolor. We have like Mortify and Putrefy, because they're again, they have more targets than just a creature. It's a creature or something else.
Yes. Oh, and we missed one of the best ones. Now that I'm thinking about it, is Assassin's Trophy.
Oh yeah.
Probably the best one. And then we can do I don't really like Abrupt Decay in anything other than
because thing is, Commander can go in the late games, it misses a lot of things, and I think that's where it's big things.
But Maelstrom Pulse though, that's a good one. So I like Maelstrom Pulse. So we're not even talking about creature removal really. This is just the instant sorcery reaction stuff we're getting into. If we got, I mean, Murderous Rider is a creature, but it also has an instant on it. If we got into creatures also, this would be way too long of a video. But we're just, usually you're playing those because like they're good with the package. So we're not going to get into that. This is just the instant sorcery interaction that we usually play in our decks.
No, if you're
playing,
also
we like Heliod's Intervention.
Oh, if you're playing black white, D-Spark is one of those like cool removal spells that I think like becomes more important than an Abrupt Decay.
I like D-Spark. Okay, what else? We got most of the good counter spells.
I mean, there's a bad exile with Unmake. It's just 3 mana instant exile a creature. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Oh,
a braid I like for the red decks.
Oh, yep.
I like a braid.
Well, red has probably like some really good like burn removal, but I do like a braid just because being able to hit artifacts. Like I said, I really like those cards that have multiple options with things because you get to really pick, hey, what do I need to deal with?
And a card that we haven't really been playing as much anymore, but Return to... Is it Dust? The 4-mana one? Yeah, the one that exiles 2 things.
The thing is, we haven't really built like a mono white stuff because that feels like a mono white card.
Yeah, or Boros.
Or Boros, yeah, because they have so few ways to deal with things. But I think that's part of what about Boros is they aren't meant to like answer things as much as their deck strategy is meant to just like kind of overwhelm you.
Trying to think of any other interaction spells I'm playing in my other decks. I play Assassin's Trophy. I play Hand Swords. Oh, Crozen's Grip. Crozen Grip.
Oh right, how do I forget about that one? I won't count like Flusterstorm, Mana Drain, Force of Will because those are like
no.
the bonkers ones.
Those are just that's just counterspell with benefits. So yeah, having a split second card. Oh, Done Spoiling. That's a good one also. And Trickbind.
Yep.
We do like Trickbind.
I like sudden. I think in casual formats, I like sudden spoiling a lot more.
Oh, totally. Like that just gets there. Like
yeah.
This card just gets there. Making everything O2s is just like one of those just ridiculously strong effects. Anything else that's worth talking about?
There is Dreadbore if you're again or in those colors.
Oh yeah, and Terminate too. Dreadbore
and Terminate.
Yes. Definitely talk about those.
Council's Judgment if you want to, because that's not expensive anymore.
Yes. Yeah, I don't care about expensive though. It's just mana drain's just a different story. So Dreadbore. Council's Judgment. My problem with it is people can be kind of dumb with the card sometimes. Like I've had people just vote so poorly with this card, unless you're like, I don't know, politicking well or like the table understands what needs to be dealt with. So just be careful with Council's Judgment. It is a very powerful card though, and if you play it correctly, sometimes you can even hit two permanents. I guess I'll talk about Song of the Triad also, because people...
Oh yeah, there's that, and there's the...
People have been playing that one that turns things into 3/3 also, and drawing a card. What is that one called again? The enchantment that does it?
Is it Kaya's enchantment?
Is it...
Or Kaya's transmutation, I think. It's one that turns to a 3/3 elk. Or no, I don't... You have to make me think now.
What is it called?
It's something
Tasmina's transmutation?
Is that what it is?
No, that's the frog.
Unless it's not transmutation, I could be completely wrong, and I just am... My brain's exploding. I know exactly what it is. Kenrith's transformation, that's what it is.
Yeah, this card's actually great. And it reminds me of a white card that people used to play a lot. The dark... what is the thing that made it a bug?
Oh, Dark Steel Mutation.
Yeah, Dark Steel. People used to...
It makes it a 0/1 with no abilities, but it's indestructible.
So I like these cards that get rid of effects because they get stuck with
Imprison in the Moon is another really annoying one.
Yes, Imprison in the Moon is good.
Which is honestly, its price is slowly ticking up.
I actually play... I don't play Kenner's Transformation, but I should. In Enchantress.
Oh, I guess never mind. It's not as much as...
Well, technically we were saying, like, you know, instant speed and sorcery interaction, but I'll count these towards it. We'll just say anything but creature interaction, really. So this is just stuff that we like for some of the colors. I'm trying to think what else I play. I play, like, Malicious Affliction, but we said that we're just going to consider the 2-mana one, like, all of them. Yeah. I haven't really been playing Tragic Slip in anything anymore unless it's budget. Because the thing is, black interaction is actually pretty bad. Like, mono black. Like, until you get to, like, the 3-mana, like, where you get to just play the downfalls, and a lot of it's at sorcery speed. And a lot of the time, the creatures are just better at interacting than the actual cards are, like Ravenous Chupacabra or Noxious Gearhulk.
Yeah, low-key, I think black is, like, kind of a creature-based decks. Like, it's kind of hard to... Like, I'm trying to think, because black is all about, like, your minions are disposable. So it's kind of hard to build decks without minions. I mean, I built that really janky mono black enchantment deck that nobody liked.
That stupid Erebos one.
Yeah. All right, I think that's a decent. When we're talking about just removal, like you could also always like there's always more to go with. We're just saying that if you're picking certain colors like these, or might be like the good ones in those colors. Because
like we said, there's also creatures that do it. Like there's like Reclamation Sage that gets a lot of play, Acidic Slime, Noxious Gearhulk, Ravenous Chupacabra. But the thing is usually your deck is an ETB deck, and like not every deck wants to have that. Like some decks just want to play an instant or sorcery at instant, like something at instant speed, unless you're abusing like being able to play at instant speed. So that's why we're just talking about the sorceries instance and the enchantment removal, really. Okay, so that's that. Let's get into board wipes, because it's kind of easy. So, Austere Command, the one that we like to